Hi everyone, I'm Fidha Fathima and I'm a Junior Clinical Fellow in Obs and Gynae in the NHS, and I'm here to speak about my PLAB preparation and a few preparation strategies. So coming to the most common question, number one, what were the materials I used? So I used the PLAB 1 gems, the PLABable mocks and the PLABable big mocks. Preparation time. So there was 4 months of priming prep. There was 2 months of work between study between works, and there was 20 days of intensive preparation. Targets. So it was in my 2 months preparation time, I've kept a target of 50 questions per day, and in my 20-day intensive phase I aimed at completing 1 mock per day along with covering gems. I booked my seat in December 2022 and I got an exam date for August 2023. I think sometime around January I took up my PLAB subscription. Though I wasn't very intense into my preparation at that stage, I used to still invest a bit of time here and there to read up some topics. So the initial 1 month went in me familiarizing with how the exam was, what were the resources available and how to approach it all in all. Along this time I was also having a bit of doubts about the whole PLAB pathway, reading all the negativity around it, and also because of my personal circumstances. So I was keeping PLAB as more of like a plan B, and I was preparing for something different altogether at the same time. So I had these classes that I was attending regularly in that period, and I was doing my PLAB preparation on the side. Roughly into my preparation around February, March, April, I went on few family trips, I went vacation, I went home, and I would not really say I was studying intensely, but I was still in touch with my PLABable materials. I was doing like say a topic a week and roughly getting there. I'm personally a slow and steady person, so for me it was more about me just brushing up those concepts, building that base, and having an assessment of how the exam is, how to approach the questions. And I would say the first 4 months went more or less on that. And in terms of topics that I had finished during that month was cardiology. I read up ECG because cardiology and ECG were kind of like separate topics in the PLABable gems. I had done around a huge chunk of neurology. I had also done parts of Obs and Gynae because I was particularly interested in Obs and Gynae as a subject. Roughly around April, I went on this friends trip that we had planned like a long time ago, and my plan was to start studying right after I returned back. Contrary to my expectations, the moment I came back, I got this job that I had been applying for quite some time, and I was left between options of choosing the job or choosing to stay home and study. I was like, PLAB is doable, let me just go work and then I'll figure it out. My work was a bit intense. It involved like 24-hour shifts, and so for the next 2 months my aim was to get through to 50 questions per day. So I just realized that I no longer had time to read the gems, read a topic and then do the questions, because sometimes when I sit with one topic I just sit with it for like a whole day. I'm not especially a slow learner, but I'm kind of like a deep learner. So if I start a topic, then it's hard for me to just turn the pages and then quick glance stuff. I want to go through it, I watch videos and I read up extra topics or extra books. So I just decided that I'm not going to do the gems, and I stuck to doing 50 questions per day. For every question I did, I would read the explanation they have given. In PLABable, you also have like a section called the revision guides, which has like a very good description of the topic. So for those 2 to 3 months when I was working, that was basically my preparation method. So April, May, June, and towards mid-July, I was working, and this was how I was preparing. Around mid-July, I think July 13th was when I finished that job, and August 10th was my exam date. So between these days, I got into like intensive preparation mode, and I started focusing on completing the topics or completing the questions that I had not finished as of now. I made sure that the last 20 days, I think there are roughly like 19 mocks in PLABable. So my main goal was to make sure that I at least did one mock every single day. Along with this, I also tried to read the gems of topics that I felt like I had barely any clue about, but most of the other topics could be revised through questions. You necessarily didn't have to read the topic per se. Except when I felt that there were certain topics that I was repeatedly making mistakes in. There was topics which I was getting wrong because I had no clue what the concept was. I took like a couple of hours, set aside everything and sat on with that topic to get that clear. So for me, such topics were differentiating miscarriages, differentiating between ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, studying how what location of auscultation or what location of the different heart sounds correlated with different types of stenosis or regurgitation. So these are some of the topics I remember on top of my head. So basically towards the end, like maybe the last 10 days, I had this rough notes of my own where I had consolidated many of these very huge chapters into like 10 to 8 pages notes, which gave me essential details to crack on almost 90% questions from those particular sections. So even though I was doing mocks every day in the last 20 days, I was doing it in a more laid back fashion. So I would take pauses, I would break, sometimes I would even read up a question in between an answer. It was something between doing a test and more like an open book test. But so the last 10 days, I did one thing that I feel helped me set myself apart, because during my exam, many people said that the exam was tough. I had my friend who said that he wasn't able to like attend 20 questions because of lack of time, whereas I was able to keep like at least 10 questions to review in the end and then still go back and review them. So I feel this one bit strategy towards the end was the key to helping me get to that point, which was to make sure that I did my mocks in a very timed fashion, in a very high pressure environment, and in the exact same way as the exam would be. So I printed out copies of previous year mocks that were flying around in PDF forms so that I had the question paper in a booklet form. I made an A4 sheet with squares in it, so I was actually marking my OMR like the actual exam. I kept a timer and I would not take any break. I would not move from my seat. I would not pause the exam. So I made sure that I was writing my exam in 3 hours and getting all the questions done. So it's 180 questions, so I think it's a bit difficult to like be able to go back through every single question in the end. So what I used to do was like when I felt there were certain questions that was like, I know the topic but I'm just not able to like answer it right, and I feel like this is happening repeatedly, I had an extra sheet beside me in which I would just note the topic down. So that's how I identified that I had issues with finding out or differentiating different causes of abdominal pain, or like I again said, I continue to have problems with ulcerative colitis, Crohn's and celiac disease. So once I figured this bit of area that I was finding difficulty in, the other thing I did was in the PLABable website, you can actually search on a particular term and you get all the questions with that keyword. So I spent a day searching up abdominal pain on the PLABable question search bar, and I did all the questions on abdominal pain. So that really helped me with taking away that topic bias, because when you're doing particular topics in a topic-wise manner, you are kind of biased to think along the lines of that specialty. So say for example, if you have a case of abdominal pain and you know that you're doing gynecology, you're more aligned to think of ectopic. Say for example, you're thinking about abdominal pain and you're doing gastro, you're more likely to think about some GIT causes of abdominal pain. Whereas if you were to be doing ophthalmology, you're going to correlate that with glaucoma and things like that. But when you listen to a person coming with a multitude of symptoms which could fit with any specialty, that's where you feel confused. So this is what I did to make sure that I was able to go through that step. The other, I think, was having that difficulty to be able to understand or to differentiate the answer when they were expecting me to answer, like whether it was the first line of treatment or first investigation of choice, or whether it was the most appropriate management. So I again did this keyword mechanism, and I put these keywords into the question bar and did questions that kept asking about first line of investigations. So this helped me go through the same clinical condition, but the questions were different. So it was the same clinical condition with first line of investigation or first line of management, and the same clinical condition coming later on with the investigation of choice, which would have completely different answers. So roughly I would say these were my strategy bits. Specifically speaking about how I scheduled my study during my work days, so what I had was, so you definitely have your PLAB app in your phone, and I used to have this small notepad with me that I used to keep in my scrub pocket. So I had this aim in my mind to do 50 questions every single day. So when we were doing, let's say, 24-hour shifts, you have those dull moments at night or late evening when you can't really sleep, but you also don't have lots of jobs to do. So I would sit down there and just do questions. I wouldn't bother to review the answers or review anything. If I felt like there was a particular topic from that question I had to learn, I would just make a very small brief note on my notepad. Following a 24-hour shift, we would have like a couple of days off, and once I was rested and I was like home and in a mood to study, I would just go through this notepad and check on all the topics that I had done in the previous my work days. And then if I felt there was a particular topic that needed more elaborate study, I would just go a bit more deep and explore that topic and learn from it. How this really helped was towards the end of when I finished my contract. What I had was a very tiny notebook which had key details or key clincher points from various topics in a mixed pattern, which served like something the likes of what most NEET PG aspirants call as the 20th notebook. So this was basically my kind of 20th notebook, and I kept going through these notes because I was very well aware of what I had written. I had good memory of what I had noted down and the topics I had elaborated on from this notebook. So I think that really helped me in having that final revision material that I could keep going back to. So I think that served as my final note, and I think I just stuck with the rest of the PLABable material itself. Now, during my preparation, I knew a lot of people who kept going back and forth between deciding on the materials, wanting to do multiple resources. I'm not sure how far the exam has changed, but based on how I keep having a look at the average score required to pass and the average score people have been getting, I don't feel there's any big difference in the mark that is expected on the general competition levels, because I think since for the last 2 to 3 years it's kind of been the same. I would say that PLAB is a very concept-based exam, and I would not even myself say that, oh yes, PLABable is word to word or verbatim on the actual exam. But I feel PLABable does cover all the essential topics and concepts you need for your PLAB exam. And I'm expecting that other resources like med revisions or PLAB keys also have the same content in it. I would say, in my opinion, stick with one content. Make sure you're learning the concepts and not learning the questions. This is one of the reasons why for PLABable users, I would say do not reset the questions and do them again, because you would just be repeating the questions, making yourself learn the question and not the concept. What this does is, in the exam, what I noticed is a lot of questions were very similar to the PLABable question bank, but there were few clincher points or some small variation that entirely made the question different. So if someone were to go with the mindset of, yes, I know this question, and answer blindly without reading the entire question or analyzing the points in the question, I think you would grossly get it wrong without having the feeling that you were getting it wrong. The other thing I feel is like using a random couple of resources just makes things confused, takes a lot of time and takes a lot of effort. You might initially be working with it when you're covering few subjects, but towards the mid or towards the end, you start losing out on how many things you have to figure out and mix everything up and end up under preparing yourself. The other problem is, I do not personally believe that you should quit everything and sit and study for the PLAB exam, because the whole of PLAB journey in general is about building yourself, making sure you're a competent foundation level doctor and that you have enough in your portfolio to set yourself apart. So if you're completely investing on your PLAB 1 exam, doing multiple resources, not letting yourself have enough time to explore other things like research or other portfolio building opportunities, I think it's just going to make it more difficult for you in the long run when you reach your PLAB 2 stage, apply for attachments or apply for jobs. So I would say that it is well doable even in a clinic, even when you're doing a clinical job. Make sure you have some kind of allowances where you at least get like weekday offs, or you have like evenings to yourself, and make a schedule that works for you. I would recommend that at least 20 days before your exam, make sure that you're not working and that you have like an intensive period to completely devote to your exam preparation. But I personally do not recommend 6 months of intensive preparation for PLAB 1 as such. That's all about PLAB 1 preparation strategies from my side. I think these are just my personal opinions. Different people have different study curves, different people have different study strategies, and different people have different study backgrounds. So that's about it. And if you have any inputs, leave them in the comment. If you have any other suggestions, let me know in the comment box. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.